How was interviewing Angelo, by the way, man? That's like, that's Angelo Moore right there, man.
It's great. He's a legend, and he's such a cool guy. I don't know if you've seen on the DVD, we've got the bonus
I haven't
like
seen it.
outtakes with
Oh yeah.
Angelo, and we went to his studio in LA, and he sat down for the interview, but he also just wanted to show us, oh, check out this song I've been working on. And he starts playing his organ, and he's playing the drums, and he's just like laughing and having a great time. And he knew Ray, who was working on the movie with me, from before. They had worked together. I think Ray like helps him as a translator when he goes to Japan, things like that. So it wasn't like we didn't know him at all. And it was actually one of our very first interviews because we knew him.
Nice.
So we kind of started there. And he's so down to earth. He's such a regular guy. And you ask him, like, what's it like when ska bands come up to you and they're like, you're a legend. You're the one who influenced me. And he's like, I don't know. He's so humble. He's just like, I just want to make music.
Yeah. That's funny. That's probably what all me and my friends would do. We'd probably just freak out, But I
was freaking out.
yeah. Of course. On the topic of other like monumental bands, Operation Ivy, like I loved everything about it. I mean, like the guitar tones, it was very reminiscent of like the Clash's kind of like more broken down guitar tones, like the dual vocals, and of course the bass playing, which even got crazier. From the outside looking in to you, what was it about Op Ivy's uniqueness that kind of kicked off that fire?
I think Op Ivy is like a bridge. Like, Tim was so into two-tone and such a historian even of the traditional Jamaican ska, and they were punk rock kids from the East Bay. And the way that they put it together like that, no one had really heard that before. There's a lot of punk in two-tone for sure. And Fishbone and the Boss Tones had been around. But the way Operation Ivy did it, and the songs are so good. Like the song, it's like the Beatles, but it's punk rock ska. So that's why I think it connects like that. And I think it took somebody like Tim Armstrong, who really appreciated the musicality of it, but is a punk rock dude, to bring it together like that. And then talking to all these other bands, that came up a few years later, it was hearing something that hadn't been done before opens you up to, oh, I could do that, especially when you see it's like 4 young kids who look so punk rock, they're like street kids, and they're not amazing musicians, but they're, obviously, like you said, the bass playing is kind of way up there. But listen to those Operation Ivy records, and like if you're a guitar player and you're trying to get into ska, you're like, I could do that. That's doable. There's not like these ripping crazy solos that no one can pull off. And the vocals aren't, they're aggressive. They're not like super melodic. So I think it was accessible. It was kind of groundbreaking at the time, and the way people connected to it. So many bands we talked to, they were like, Operation Ivy, that's why I got into this music. That's why I do it. And it makes perfect sense. And the fact that, it kind of kept going with Rancid. So they were still there. Right. When you have these bands coming up in the mid 90s, even though Operation Ivy had been long gone, you could still look to Rancid, and their biggest hit was a ska song. So people were like, I still see it. I still connect that. But I don't know. That's one of those like magical one time, Operation Ivy happened. And if they hadn't, I don't think if they hadn't happened, we wouldn't have had the big third wave, at least in California, that explosion. It all kind of traces back to that one, bedroom in Tim Armstrong's house that we had that little video clip from.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think even songs that aren't so well, I think all their songs are highlighted for sure. But like, when you think Op Ivy, everyone puts all like the ska, more ska based songs. But I think a lot of like the album, like the other album cuts that they had on there. I mean, like for me personally, Crowd and Missionary, those songs aren't necessarily the most, like they don't really have too much upstrokes going on in them. But I mean, you listen to them, they're like gang anthems. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have, you can hear like as if they have like a whole orchestra of people singing those songs with them. It feels that way, even though it's like, as you're saying, like punk rock style recordings,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it too, like we have to admit as human beings who listen to music that they're not good quality recordings. But when you talk to people who were there, and I wasn't old enough to be there. Even though I grew up in San Francisco, I wasn't at those Gilman Street shows as much as, I wish I could go back. You talk to people who were there, and I think there's that live energy too that was such a big part of it, and you look at bands like the Dance Hall Crashers came out of that scene, and Green Day was there, and
so many bands.
But it was that place and that time, like we were talking about, that specific energy and those people in that place at that time that you couldn't recreate. It has to be those people, it has to be that place, it has to be that time, and it has to be this music. And I think that's what you're getting at with those like anthem-y, because when I hear it, I picture the live show. I'm like, this had to have been one of the most amazing, to be in that room, of whatever 300 kids at Gilman Street singing those songs would have been amazing. And it was. You talk to people who were there, and they're like, yeah, that was it. Yeah. That was Woodstock for those people.
Yeah. Did you ever get into like Rancid and like the Transplants and Lars and the Bastards, or?
I listen to Transplants. I never listen to Lars and the Bastards, except when they come up on playlists and stuff. But I love like the Tim Armstrong solo record. Yeah, it's really up there. It's like one of my favorites. Transplant stuff. Rancid. I really like their ska songs. Yeah. And Out Come the Wolves is another one of those perfect records for me where there's not a song on there I don't love. But, there's a lot of Rancid songs. And when they put out like a good ska song, I'm totally in. Yeah. Like to me, that's, even though there's not usually horns, it's like, that's as good as it gets. Like I said, I compare it to the Beatles, like songwriting wise. Gotcha. These amazing hooks and the melodies and the bass playing. Oh my God. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, there's a song they got really, really dope. It's called Things to Come. I think they got horns in that one too. Yeah. Things to Come is really good. Switching topics real quick. In the movie, you got a great section on skanking. So I just gotta ask, man, like, what's your favorite skank move? Because I mean, like, for example, like for mine, if I had to break them down, I got 3 favorite moves. I got like the backwards skank because I'm not half bad at it, and then I got this elbow step away motion that I kind of do, Nice. And then I got like this little pick it up choreograph that I kind of like put together over the years. You know what I'm saying? Nice. So whenever the skank pit breaks out, do you have a go-to, or are you past like the whole pitting phase?
No. I still do it. We did. There was a tour for the movie with the ska parade that we did, and I was able to go to the first night of that in Seattle, and I'll skank into some of those bands. There's some great bands out there, but I'm like, if you've seen the movie, the guy, the actor who was on the TV show, who's like, skanking is so mechanically easy that awkward white kids can do it. Yeah. I'm one of those awkward white kids who, I can't dance at all, but I can kind of just do the real basic with the elbows out and the knees kicking out. Like, I don't even have a name for it. I just do the one that I can do.
Yeah, the universal one, of course.
Yeah. Like the Operation Ivy logo guy is, of
course, yeah.
Like, that's what I can do, and so that's what I do.
Nice.
It's fun. I love, like, the difference between a mosh pit and a group of people skanking. Like, the skanking people are having more fun, in my opinion. It's happier. Everybody dancing, to me, even though I can't do it, is a very happy, like, it makes your body feel happy. And so the ska music is so danceable. Like, it really does make you want to move. Yeah. And I think that's a huge part of it too. If we didn't have that, like, the shows wouldn't be as fun. And if the shows weren't as fun, the community wouldn't be as strong. And if the community wasn't as strong, this music wouldn't still be here. So
yeah, of course. When you guys did that tour, did you wake up sore any of the next mornings or not necessarily?
For me, yeah, it was always more playing shows.
Gotcha.
If I'd be running around, especially as a horn player, there's parts of the songs where you don't do anything except run around, jump up and down, and skank and do whatever, just trying to be entertaining. So, as I got older and was still trying to do that, your body gets a little sore for sure. But now, I'll pace myself. I'm not going to skank the whole show because I know I would be sore. I'm almost 40. My back isn't going to hold on the way it used to. But to that point about the moshing and the slam dancing and all that, I think that's one of the great things too about, like, you look at a band like the Boss Tones or Less Than Jake, or Rancid, and at those shows you have those pits, those aggressive pits for the punk rock parts of the song.
Right.
And you'll go to a ska part and everybody will stop and start skanking, and it's kind of like this magic trick that the band can do, where they're like, now you do this and now you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas you know, at a straight punk rock show, it's just moshing the whole time.
Yeah.
And I love that about the ska music. Like they changed the guitar a little bit and all the people changed their behavior to match.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is, it, as you were describing that, it's like, I can already see like the people that aren't fitting during like the punk part, just kind of waiting for like the,
exactly.
Fill, you know, and then as soon as the drum fill hits into the, you know, or whatever it is, that, you know, it's because it's funny because even at like local shows, I see that too. Like, if kids come and like they know the songs of the band or whatever, they just know the cues. Yeah, it's like how you said, it's a cool little magic trick, like call and response type of thing. But moving on, you guys also touched on Sublime and Gwen Stefani and how they kind of kick-started things kind of like commercially for a lot of like the Cali sort of. Can I just get like your general thoughts on Sublime as a band, as well as No Doubt, and you know, I don't know if you came up listening to those bands or not. Some general thoughts.
For sure. I mean, I feel like Sublime was one of those bands in the 90s that everybody listened to.
Mm-hmm.
The hip hop kids, the stoners, the punk rock kids, the people who just listened to pop music because they were on pop radio. So the beauty of Sublime, they're like, to me, they're like the gateway drug for a lot of people, and No Doubt too, in a very similar way. Because No Doubt, you know, by the time they hit the radio, they had been a band forever. They had all the ska music behind them, but they weren't doing it anymore as much. You know, they still had their horn players. They still had, you know, when their big record came out, they still had Gwen's brother playing the keyboards and all that. And there's a little bit of ska on Tragic Kingdom, which is a huge, huge album. And there's just as much ska on Sublime's self-titled album, you know, like a couple songs. And those were two of the top selling albums of the 90s, period. Yeah. So the fact that there's any ska at all on those huge records, I mean, it's like if you said, you know, Oasis or Weezer had a ska song, you'd be like, wow, okay, that's something. But it was Sublime and No Doubt. And it's because I think they came out of Southern California, and, you know, Gwen was so into two-tone and all that. And Bradley too, you know, we talked to Troy, who was his wife, and she had more stories. We couldn't fit that much in the movie, but, you know, he loved this music, and he loved reggae, and he loved hip hop and dub, and trying to mix all these sounds. And especially back then, you know, people weren't doing that.
Yeah.
Sublime was doing.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah. I know
ska to hip hop people, and they were bringing hip hop to ska people, and they were bringing, you know, punk rock into it too. They'd have their crazy little punk rock songs. And it was, I don't quite understand why everybody likes Sublime. I feel like it's for me, you know, like I like punk rock and I like reggae and I like all these things. So it felt like it was for me, but I think that's how everybody felt about Sublime, at least. And there was like this mythology because he died before they got really big. You know, they had like the one single, and then he died, and then they had several more singles that made that album sell so well. So there was that kind of like, it was like the Kurt Cobain thing with Bradley. And like we said in the movie, the commercial aspect of it, not everybody was into that. You know, a lot of people were, you know, calling them sellouts and saying, especially No Doubt, like coming out of the ska scene, basically building their reputation in the ska scene. And then when they got big, almost going straight pop music with just a little bit of ska. And some people thought it was great, and some people thought, you know, they were sellouts. At that time, being a sellout was a really like a taboo thing. People didn't like. I feel like that's not really a thing anymore. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make $5 with music. Right. And so if anybody can do it, you know, if you get a Nike commercial, more power to you.
Yeah.
But back then, it meant that you weren't like a real musician. You were a sellout. You were fake. And also, I think with Gwen too, there was the fashion aspect. You know, she would be on the magazine covers, had nothing to do with the music. And that was a whole separate aspect to that I think separated them even more from the ska scene.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was great in the way that it brought people in. It's one of those things when you go and you try to find people who don't know about ska and explain it to them, they know No Doubt and they know Sublime if you're lucky. But you can kind of, well, you know how Sublime had that one song that was kind of the fast guitar, and it was, you know, and it's and the one with the trombone in it. You remember that one? And they'd be like, oh yeah, the trombone one, yeah, that's ska. So that was kind of that thing. Yeah,
it's funny because that's exactly the examples that I feel like people just use. Oh shit, what's ska? Sublime, like, or hey, no doubt. And I think another thing that you're saying about like the whole like sellout aspect, I just don't know what people that like pin that on bands like expect bands to do. Like, did you expect No Doubt to sign like a like a deal at a major record label and keep playing ska punk? Like, for example, when again, not a ska example, but AFI, like, did people really expect them to keep writing like the same types of albums